Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Checks and Balances TV. Today's program is entitled Unhealthy State of the Union. Our national debt is now growing faster than the economy. So let's see how today's news may impact your financial future. For the first time since World War II, our national debt has reached the same level as the total production value of the country's economy. In other words, the national debt, which is the amount of money the country owes to its creditors, combined with IOUs to government retirement programs and other initiatives, now tops $15.23 trillion. This now equals the value of all goods and services the U.S. economy produces in 1 year's time. With the debt ceiling expected to rise by another $1.2 trillion sometime this month, the national debt will officially surpass the country's annual economic output. Okay, so what's really going on here? Let's check the facts using our checks and balances process. The ratio of U.S. debt to GDP has now officially hit 100%, and it's rising. The last time the ratio of national debt to gross domestic product topped 100% was just after World War II. GDP measures the market value of all goods and services produced within a country during a specific time period, usually on a quarterly or annual basis. The national debt is defined as the total amount of debt owed by a country, both internally as well as externally, to foreign lenders. The ratio of national debt to GDP reached 121% in 1946, 1 year after World War II ended. That is the highest ratio in U.S. history, and understandably so. The U.S. spent an estimated $341 billion fighting World War II, and the U.S. GDP didn't top that figure until 1952. After the war was paid for, the national debt to GDP ratio decreased incrementally over the next 35 years, falling to just 32% of GDP by 1981. The latest official U.S. GDP through the third quarter of 2011 was $15.17 trillion, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Our national debt is currently more than $15.23 trillion and will go up at least another $1.2 trillion when the debt ceiling is raised yet again under the Budget Control Act of 2011. The biggest culprit in the rise of debt during the Obama administration is the cost of the economic stimulus plan and health care reform measures, which have contributed to more than $4.5 trillion in debt over the past 3 years. The stimulus plan was aimed at boosting the economy following the most recent recession, which is notable, as it's the only time period since the end of World War II that the U.S. saw a drop in annual GDP. Okay, so now that we've checked the facts, let's balance this news using our checks and balances process to determine what action you should take today. When the debt ceiling rises to $16.4 trillion this month, more borrowing and spending is expected to continue through the rest of 2012. In fact, the Congressional Budget Office, also known as the CBO, has already estimated the government will run at a deficit of $973 billion for fiscal year 2012, which started on October 1st of 2011. That number will top $1 trillion for the fourth year in a row if the payroll tax cut and emergency unemployment benefits are extended for the rest of the year as expected. What's worse is that President Obama's 2012 budget projects U.S. debt rising above $26 trillion in just a decade from now, making this alarming trend of debt growing faster than the economy a real concern for all of us who live in this country. Rising debt will continue to hurt the U.S. economy by threatening Social Security and other important government programs, in driving down the value of the U.S. dollar even further and increasing our reliance on foreign investors in order to pay for our obligations will not help us either. Not to mention that our children and grandchildren will really be the ones to foot the bill. From a global perspective, the U.S. is not alone in this dilemma, but we are not in great company. Only Greece, Iceland, Ireland, Italy, Japan, and Portugal have advanced economies like the U.S. with debts that are larger than their economy. Greece, Ireland, and Portugal all recently needed bailouts from European central banks, while Italy's books are currently being monitored by the International Monetary Fund. Fortunately for China, they are on the opposite end of the spectrum, with an average annual increase in GDP of 9%. In 2011, China surpassed Japan as the world's second largest economy and displaced Germany as the world's leading exporter. The World Bank estimates that China will surpass the U.S. economy by 2020, which means that we have a lot of work to do if we are to avoid this scenario and remain the world's #1 economy. Okay, so what's the bottom line here? So just how bad is the state of the U.S. national debt? Well, it's so bad that every working American would need to give up 1 year's salary to pay it off. Some have argued that raising taxes is the easy solution. But who wants to pay more in taxes to fund the government's continued spending? Taxes at the end of World War II were increased to pay the cost of defending the U.S., which was, of course, a noble cause, and one that most Americans supported. But in today's scenario, the money the government spends seems to be out of control with no accountability. Take, for example, how it funds companies such as solar panel manufacturer Solyndra for $500 million, only to have the company file for bankruptcy a short time later. No matter how much money Americans pay in taxes to our government, our elected officials are still the ones who are making the important decisions on what to spend our money on. They need to wake up and decide on a plan to significantly cut spending and start digging us out of this seemingly bottomless pit before it's too late. And now for Matt's weekly financial tip, tool, or technique. The federal government is obviously setting a bad example for all Americans. So let's not follow their lead. Rather than excessive spending, let's try excessive saving this new year. Living and spending within your means today can help you rely less on the government and more on yourself in retirement. So here are 3 tips that you can implement now to help you spend less and save more in 2012. Tip number 1, pay cash and pay it on time. If you're like most Americans, you probably used your credit cards for holiday shopping last month, which means you're figuring out how much to pay on each of those credit cards this month. Well, stop using those credit cards now and focus on paying off those balances. Continuing to spend while you owe can lead to paying more in interest and principal on those purchases. And if you're ever late, those extra fees and interest on fees can really add up. So remember, cash is still king. Tip number 2 is negotiate better rates. Take it upon yourself to lower what you're paying for goods and services by negotiating better rates with the vendors. If you think you're paying too much for cable television or your phone bill, shop around and threaten to leave your current provider. Odds are they will lower your rates to keep your business, and you will end up saving more money every month and every year. And tip number 3 is stop impulse buying. The worst habit of all that can quickly lead to debt is buying impulsively. The holidays are over, so now is not the time to make any big purchases that will put you even deeper into debt. Instead, concentrate on paying down or off your debt and living within your means. Try the 48-hour rule. If you see something you really want, leave it alone. Wait 48 hours. If you still feel the need to buy, then move forward cautiously. Each of these tips can help you keep your personal finances in great shape for 2012 and enable you to save more money. Go on a spending diet, slim down your debt, and bulk up your bank account this year and become financially fit. Be sure to log on to our website and download our featured report, Financial Freedom Wake-Up Call, a free report that teaches you how to plan for, save consistently, and invest wisely for a secure financial future. And finally, remember that only you can control your financial future. You can succeed. You just need confidence and determination. I'm Matthew J. Reddick from Checks and Balances TV. Until next week, dump debt, invest wisely, believe in yourself, and make it happen.